Welcome. Thank you for watching the first episode of the Harmony Hill Wrestling with God podcast. This is a podcast meant to deal with apologetical issues, and to be honest, it was born out of the fact that during the Wrestling with God series here at the church, as I was tackling various issues, there's just so much that I wanted to give to our congregation to help solidify why we believe what we believe. But for time constraint, I had to pick and choose some things. And so thankfully, we have the technology for some bonus content, if you will. So each episode, I'm going to be taking a topic that I may have touched on in a sermon and maybe expounding it a little bit. And here's my desire, to be honest, is maybe you're watching this and you're watching because you have questions about the topics that I'm going to be discussing. But also I recognize some of you may be watching because there are people in your life that have these questions, and it would be helpful to have a succinct resource that you could go to or to share with someone and then have a conversation with later. So I'm really excited about these several episodes that we're going to put together. Today, in this episode, I am going to be speaking on the question, how can we know that God exists? This is such a foundational question. How do we know that God exists? Maybe you've wondered that or have people in your life. So there's a lot of ways that we can answer that, but I'd like to share with you just a few from creation itself. The very fact that there is logic and order in our creation, in our universe, and within our bodies, and with how we think and how we resonate and how different cultures express certain things that are uniquely human that point to something beyond us, point to God. And so I'd like to read Psalm 19, verses maybe 1 and 2, just as a foundation for this topic. It says this: "The heavens declare the glory of God, and the sky above proclaims his handiwork. Day to day pours out speech, and night to night reveals knowledge." Essentially what the psalmist is saying is that nature itself, creation itself, is screaming that there is a creator. And so here are a couple of things just real quickly that point to the existence of God. The first thing that I'll share with you is called first cause, meaning, where did we come from? For years and years, centuries even, there were cultures that believed that the universe was eternal, having always existed in the past and will always exist in the future. But because of modern science and the examination of nature, someone you've probably heard of, Albert Einstein, and the theory of relativity, I'm not smart enough to explain every part of it, but I can say this: when they ran the mathematical formula of how the universe is still expanding, when you reverse that, it comes back to a singular point of origin. This is fascinating because then the question is, how did that happen? What caused the first cause that then rolled out into our universe and into creation? See, the atheist or the evolutionist would say that something came out of nothing, and that's really just the hope, and the explanation is it's just a big bang, and here we are, and there's other things that can explain that. But from the biblical or the Christian worldview, we would say that God spoke, and instantly out of nothing, God created. See, the theory of relativity holds that everything is made up of matter and space and time. So for something to be caused, something has to be greater than the current space and matter and time. So existing outside of time, not constrained by matter and space and time to make a cause. Well, for the Christian, this is an easy answer. God exists outside of space and time, and therefore could be the first cause of the universe. As I said in the sermon series, at the end of the day, we all have to have faith in something, either faith that nothing produced something, or that God created and spoke it and it has existed. Another evidence through creation, not just the idea and the logic of first cause, but secondly, the fine-tuning argument. The idea that the universe is so fine-tuned that there are certain necessities that if they were off by a millisecond or a milligram or by a few inches, then life would not be possible. This is sort of an idea I shared in the sermon that whenever you see a pocket watch, you don't look at a pocket watch and assume that random parts randomly came together. No. When you see a pocket watch and the intricate details of gears and dials and timing mechanisms and the glass overlay, all the numbers that go around it, we assume someone invented, that there was intelligent design. Well, when we look at the universe, to me, it takes less faith to assume that God created this fine-tuned argument. For instance, I've written down a few. Did you know that for life to be sustained, we have to have the exact amount of gravity that we have on Earth? If it was any stronger or any weaker, life would not be sustainable on Earth. How about this? From a particle standpoint, if neutrons were not the exact size that they were down to the 1,000th degree after the decimal, if they were any bigger, they would naturally gravitate and eat up and become protons, and we would have only protons, no neutrons, and life could not exist. That is astounding to me. How about this? The rate of expansion of the universe, which I was talking about, that first cause, if it had gone any faster, the universe would have collapsed back in on itself. If it was expanding any slower, stars would not be able to form, therefore no life. Our sun is a star, which we need. How about this? There are many. I'm just giving a few. The fact that our planet, Earth, has the exact amount of planetary mass needed to sustain life. Not only that, but it has to have a moon, a singular moon with a magnetic field at the right distance for life to exist. All of these things, and there's about 50 of these critical things that scientists can all agree to sustain life, are the amount of oxygen-rich environment that we have for life, the amount of water, the cleanliness of water. So many things. Look, at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, is it by true accident that our universe has been fine-tuned for life to exist, or is it possible that an intelligent designer, just like with the pocket watch, has put it all together? There are some who would rather say that the fine-tuning is more chance because there is a multiverse, an infinite amount of universes. We just happen to live in the one that created the exact requirements for life. There may be other universes that had 48 of the 50 and others that had 3 of the 50, but we have the one that has all the necessary components for life. Well, if you go back to the first cause argument, it would be, well, who is this multiversal generator that is starting all these universes in parallel? Again, it takes faith to dismiss God's handiwork through the skies and heavens and declaration. Let me give you a couple more things here. There is, even outside of science, from philosophy, if you will, or ethics, there is the moral law. You go anywhere on the planet, any civilization, and there is an innate sense of right and wrong. God would say in His Word that this is His imprint, the image of God on His creation. We have what we would commonly refer to as a conscience. We have a conscience that tells us right and wrong. Now listen, you go to other parts of the world and they may eat with chopsticks or with their hands. And in the West, we're going to eat with silverware. You may go somewhere else and everyone wears head coverings. In other parts, there are no head coverings. Even things that are values like hospitality or working for yourself. There is a difference between moral value and etiquette. Etiquettes vary wildly across cultures. Even values vary wildly across cultures, but morals, right and wrong. You go anywhere and you steal something, or you murder someone, or you lie, and there is a general sense that that is right or that is wrong. You go and do good to someone, it is seen as morally right. For me, there is faith that God has given us a conscience, His image on us, even though marred by sin and the fall, that we have an innate sense of right and wrong. That, to me, is an evidence that God exists. How about this one? The argument from beauty. I mentioned this in the sermon in brief, but the idea that we as human beings can see His creation, a mountainscape, and see it beautiful, that we can then create ourselves painting and poetry and statues, or make clothing, or even what we're doing now, the creativity with technology for rational thought and movies and stories. I mean, these are all things that project beauty. How can we even recognize beauty from an atheistic perspective? There is no reason, if we are just a product of survival of the fittest, gene replication, of why we would have a value system of which is ugly and which is beauty, which is to be praised and which should be despised. This is another evidence that there is something beyond us that gives us a sense of what beauty is. I think about it like this. There are times when I watch certain movies. I love watching movies. And whenever I watch a movie that has a scene where two characters have a reconciliation, to me, I am moved often to tears because of the beauty of something that was discord becoming unified. Where does that come from? Why do I care about fictional characters like that, other than God has planted in us the desire for unity, for beauty, etc.? The last one I'll give you is this. C.S. Lewis put forward the idea, the argument of joy for the existence of God. What he means by that is this, that there are certain natural desires that we have, that we are born with, that have a natural way to be fulfilled. For instance, when a baby is born, it has a natural desire for food, and we have food or milk that can meet that desire. When a duck is born, it has a desire to swim, and so water is available so that it can meet that need of swimming. Even in the sense of men and women with sexual desire that has been given to us, there is within God's plan of the context of marriage that sexual desire has a place and a way to be fulfilled. And so what Lewis would say is this, that you and I have a desire for joy. Some would call it, you may have heard people say, we all have a God-shaped hole inside of us. We desire to worship something. We will worship something, but what can only truly satisfy us is God. Where we can truly find joy is in God Himself. And Lewis would even go so far as to say this, that though we can taste that joy now, that we have a longing for an even immortal and eternal joy, which gives us even an evidence of God who is eternal, who is beyond us, and the desire for heaven itself. And so as I conclude, I just want to say this, that there are many things, and I've only listed a couple here, but if you're just looking through, hey, what are some evidences of how we can even know God, who is invisible, exists? Well, we have first cause, we have the fine-tuned argument, we have the argument from morality, we have the argument from beauty, and the argument for joy, or from joy, just to name a few. And so as I close, I just want to say this. If you have been wondering or having questions about, is there a God? I pray that God would reveal Himself even through a simple video like this, that He exists, but not only does He exist, the God of the Bible wants a personal relationship with you. And if there's any way that we can help you here at Harmony Hill, we would love to do that. Please reach out, attend one of our services, reach out to someone you know who is a believer, and further the conversation, because there is a God and He loves you. Thank you for watching the Wrestling with God podcast. Please like, share, subscribe, all of those things to help beat the algorithm to get this out to as many people as possible. And we'll see you the next time you're on the Hill.